Welcome to another episode of The Practical Metaphysical Journey, the place where practical meets the paranormal, the mundane meets the metaphysical, and the spiritual meets the spooky. A place where we share the experiences of our journeys here on Earth. We encourage you to listen and see what resonates, because we're all different yet the same. We invite you to take a break with us, so unpack and stay a while. We're glad you stopped by for a visit. I'm here again with Lisa and Deb. Today's topic, what we're going to be discussing, is the term that I'm sure everybody has heard multiple times, being present. I know if you've done meditation or looked into anything like metaphysics and so forth, you always hear that term, being present, or live in the present, that type of thing. So I thought it would be good to kind of talk about that and what does that actually mean for us. I know for myself, when I first started with it and I heard that term multiple times, present to me meant I'm physically here. Am I not present? But I think when you start looking at it in the context of meditation and spirituality, that it does have a little bit of a different meaning in those particular instances. So we're going to take a look at that and have that discussion today. So when we get into that, we'll talk about it, give our viewpoints, what does it mean for us, and then also talk a little bit about how do we be present in our own practice or when we do meditate, that type of thing. So first, let's kind of start off. If when you want to, what does being present mean?
I would say for me, it's just being aware of space-wise where I'm at, what I'm thinking, and I will tell you, I struggle with that. I struggle with really being present. My mind's always doing 12 things. So I know we're going to talk a little bit about monkey mind later, but for me it's about just bringing it all together where I'm literally paying attention to my surroundings in the moment, like being like in the now part.
Same with me. It's about being in this particular time or space and time. And I kind of tend to forget sometimes that, okay, I'm in a space as well. I'm always thinking, okay, if I have to be in the present, that means I can't bring up the past and I can't think too far in the future. So it's actually a really difficult concept for me to latch onto because the present is always the now. So I'm like, well, how about now? But now, how about now? How about now? So that takes me down some crazy rabbit hole and creates my monkey mind. So I have to incorporate something physical into that, whether it's breathing or even just something like a little bit of tapping or something, just to keep my focus here instead of keeping my mind from going different places.
I wrote down the word focus as well. I was like, what can we do to focus on literally what's happening in that moment? Because like you said, then that's the past.
Yeah.
A moment later is the past.
And then it feels like too much work. So it's like, okay, I can't be in the present. Being in the present's exhausting. So it's learning to kind of give up that concept of, I have to be in the present, and just absorbing it and not thinking about it so hard, which I'm always a very thinking being. So
yeah, I want to be prepared for the future, right?
Yes.
Like I'm always thinking ahead so that I'm prepared for the future. So I love this concept of this podcast today because I struggle here.
Yeah, and for me, in learning to be present started more around the fact that I do think about the future a lot. And I also struggled with worrying. I worried about everything.
Yeah.
So part of my process in learning to not worry so much was to learn to be present, meaning, that I'm considering things that are in the future. Well, right now, let's take some time and just worry about what's here in front of me, this moment, the room that I'm in. The way it was explained to me, and that's, you'll see for you two in my notes, my yoga story. It's what I learned from a yoga teacher. One of the first yoga teachers that I had seen is, he says, you have to realize your mind cannot do two things at the same time. So it cannot think about the future and think about what's going on right now at the same time.
Yeah.
So part of the yoga practice is to be present, to just worry about what's going on at that moment and put the rest of that stuff off to the side. And if you look into that even more, studies show that when you worry about something that's not necessarily real or not necessarily has happened yet, your body still has a physical reaction to that thought. So for me, worrying all the time, now I'm doing damage to my body as well,
right,
because I'm in this constant state of just upset because, this may happen or this may happen. You don't know. So, stop. Put that to the side for a while. Not that you say that you should never think about that stuff. Yeah, you have to think of your future and that type of thing. But just be more aware of taking the time to step away from that and be present. So for me, yes, it's like be aware of, like you two, be aware of my environment. What's going on right now? So that I'm not in that mind state of being worried about things that are not happening or not going on at the moment.
Yeah, I think if you can find that beauty in being where you are at that moment and knowing nothing is happening. Nothing has to happen in that now. So you're not having to worry, you're not worried about having to do something, nothing's coming at you. Finding that peacefulness in there, I think that's what I look for. Kind of like with Eckhart Tolle and the presence of now, or whatever he's got, the power of now. Remembering that this moment is more powerful than whatever I'm thinking is going to happen in the future that isn't going to happen, or whatever's happened in the past that might be affecting me, but that power's already gone because I'm in this moment. I'm sitting, I'm breathing, feeling, I'm looking around, and it is kind of trying to maintain that space and focus. And yeah, it's work doing that, but I guess it's like anything else. The more you practice it, because it's a spiritual practice, then I guess the better that you get to it, and the easier you get to that space as well. I think that's kind of my goal, but I'm not there yet.
Yeah. And just a couple of definitions, because I like to do that. Mm-hmm. We talked about how we define it. I just also like to look it up and see, is there a common definition that I've seen out on, say, the web and so forth. So at least the word present, if you look in vocabulary.com, it talks about present is the period of time that is happening now, any continuous stretch of time, including the moment of speech. So yeah, pretty generic, not that weird. But I looked up being present to see how that comes up. And on this website for LouiseThompson.com, I pulled out the quote from her website. This is essentially for me what be present means is that my mind is in the now, and the now is where my body is now. Which is kind of what we were saying, is just being aware of what's around me at that moment and what's going on at that moment, and not, again, worrying about what might be in the future or thinking about something in the future. So think about, the overall intent of the podcast being it's this metaphysical journey that we're on, and from a practical point of view, like where do you see for yourself, where does it come up in your journey as you look into metaphysics or your spirituality and figuring out your purpose and so forth? Where do you see it being present?
I know for me, I think about generation-wise, I come from a line of warriors and people that want to, give you advice on the front end, because if something happens, then, they might feel like it was their fault, or if they just would have said something, that kind of thing. So I feel like I really want to break that. So for my own personal spiritual journey, it's about trusting that I'm in the flow, and that I don't have to have all the answers right now, but they're available to me as when I'm ready for them. So for me, it's that diligence of, again, trying to stop myself from jumping too far ahead, And I've had so many people over the years, like my purse, like I'm a Girl Scout, right? What do you need? Okay, yeah, like everything's in my purse.
Right.
I'm ready for everything. They're like, you're a really good Girl Scout. I'm like, yeah. Well, I was a brownie, but anyways, or campfire girl. I was a campfire girl. But yeah, just knowing that that we're supported, that we are supported, and can I trust that? How do I trust that? Learning to trust it, and like we'll get into some techniques a little bit from now, but yeah, I have to learn to trust and be in the flow.
And I'm similar, and I'm, when you said I come from a family of worriers, my thought was, yeah, and for me too, and it's probably that learned behavior in that environment that we grew up in. So yeah, and I think some of that trust coming from, for me, not worrying, getting to that point, and then realizing I didn't have to worry because it didn't happen. So yeah, in the future I can trust that I can stay present. I don't have to think that far ahead. And if something does happen, you take care of it in that moment. But yeah, the worrying part doesn't get you very far.
Right. Like there's something to be said for planning,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
But there's not that aspect of every little piece. You don't have to know every little piece of everything all the time.
Yep.
I remember having a conversation with my dad at one point, and I was talking about, I'm just, I'm exhausted and I'm doing all this stuff, but there's all this other stuff I have to do, and I just don't have the energy for it, and blah, 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 going on and on and on. And I really had wrapped my head into this space where I was so frustrated that I was paralyzed because there was nothing I could do. And I had all these, there were mundane tasks to do and stuff around the house. And my dad, in his wisdom, said, you don't have to be doing things every minute. You can just be. And I'm like, what? I did not come from a family of people who were just being. We were always doing. So who are you? But it took that moment, and I remember just kind of taking a deep breath and being like, oh yeah, I really don't. There's no one out there saying you have to be doing. And I forget that lesson over time, but I'm picking it up more and more and more. And surprisingly, the place that I'm picking it up more is at work, working in the hospital with patients. And I'm constantly having to be in a room with patients and gather their information and what I do. And I notice that when I kind of kick back and lean against the wall and I spend a few minutes just being with them, or if they're just coming in there and they've got issues going on, just being with them. I don't have to talk to them. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to be gathering the information. I can just sit there and be with them just for a few seconds even. That really is forming such a good connection, and they notice it and they mention it a lot of times on some level. Thank you for being with me. And it's like, yeah, I don't always have to be saying something or doing something or in the process of doing. And so I catch myself more and more during the day doing that, and that is actually helping me create that space of peace, and giving me a chance to breathe in a 12-hour shift where things are constantly coming at you. The moments where it's actually quieter at work, when aren't ambulances coming in or patients coming through the door, that's when I start getting nuts about, well, I should be doing something. What should I be doing? But actually these patients are helping me with this lesson that I just need to kind of remember and reflect on that and be like, okay, when I'm talking to them or talking to their family members or doing whatever I'm doing, even for just a few seconds, I'm just being.
Yeah, you're a human being, not a human doing.
Not a human doing. and seeing how much that's appreciated. And I think I work best off of feedback like that. That's the old acting part of me, the theater arts person that's, looking for the feedback. Getting that nice, calm, positive feedback from the patients is helping my energy match that. So I'm kind of deconstructing that and noticing that more and more. And then that's part of the focus too, is the noticing and the being. Mm-hmm. So yeah. I'm kind of getting there.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me relates to what I was thinking about talking about next is like for me, and I think Lisa, you mentioned it as well. I'm not perfect at it.
No.
I know what it is, and I have felt the peace that I get from being present. but it is. I still work on it.
Yeah.
It's not something I easily slip into, or I live in, 24/7 without any, detours from it. But it is that noticing and just accepting that you're going to go off and do the worrying sometimes, or start thinking about the future and get knocked out of the present.
Mm-hmm.
But that's okay. You notice it. And also, for me, I look at the situation. Do I need to be thinking about something up ahead?
Right.
Like if I'm driving and there's a lot of traffic, then I got to think about, do I need to take another route or something like that? Am I going to get where I'm going on time in this traffic? But it is work, and you have to notice it and try to knock yourself back into it. So that that idea of I'm not perfect at it. So what are some of those things that you do? Like when you do notice it, like what do you then do then? Like to try to get yourself back into the present. What are some of the either techniques or the tips or tricks that you do to try to get into being present?
I brain dump a lot of things down onto a list a lot of times when I'm feeling overwhelmed or just whatever's going on. I will just kind of take a moment to just, even if it's one word, just kind of boom, 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 just to get it over there. Because focus is what keeps coming up as we're talking about this. I have a lack of focus sometimes, and I want to be doing 12 things at once when I know I got to just hone it down, right? So for me, writing it down, at least getting it out of my mind, and then I can kind of look at that and evaluate, okay, kind of like you're saying, like right now I could pick this and I'll do this, and then that could easily flow into the other things. But it kind of gives me a framework on paper to look at.
What I started doing too is like, okay, when my mind is kind of going off the rails like that, or I'm like, okay, I got to worry about what's happening tomorrow. What am I going to wear? What am I doing? How am I going to get there? Blah, blah, blah. And start doing that. I'm trying to kind of reroute my thinking, and breathing for me doesn't do it. Because I'm already doing that. I can't focus on my breath. I've never had an easy time doing that. It's in, it's out, and I get so bored. So I'm like trying to pick a color, and I'll just in my mind say, green. And then my task is to be where I am, but notice things that are green. So I'm trying to do different colors and things like that. Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, okay, when you see 3 things, then fine. So I'm like, I'm even micromanaging that a little bit, but if I can focus on, let's just take a look around. It's bringing me back to the present. What am I seeing? 3 things that are green in this room at this time. Okay, there's this on the wall, there's that on the wall, and there's the actual wall color or the rug or something. Then it's like, okay, that was a good moment. And that just...
it kind of broke that
it breaks
monkey.
Yes. It's, it doesn't have to be so drastic like, putting a stick in the spokes of the bikes. So I don't have to go ass over tea kettle with it. I just have to be like, whoa, slow, whoa, let's take that runaway horse and rein him back in.
Yeah. And it sounded, Lisa, like you almost used that term monkey brain that we had written down but we hadn't talked about yet. But that's the term a lot of people call it when you're in that cycle of just your mind's going a mile a minute and you're thinking about everything, not focusing on anything. Some people call it that monkey mind. I like that idea of the like looking for colors, because a technique that I use is to take a moment and actually concentrate on the 5 senses and pick out in that moment, like, what is something I see? What is something I smell? What is something I feel? Like, is the room cold or is it hot? So out of the 5 senses, just pick I go through all 5, but just take a moment to think at all 5 and look at, like, what do you see at that moment? What do you hear at that moment? What do you taste at that moment? What do you feeling? To knock myself back to paying attention to what's going on right now.
I like that. It's bringing you back to your actual physical body, bringing yourself back into your body instead of being out of body with your mind worrying about things in the ether there. It's grounding. It's
grounding.
Yeah.
I have that underlined on my paper.
There you go. See?
And sometimes, you might. I've seen it where people describe it as forest bathing.
Mm-hmm.
So for things like meditation and so forth, that they say go out into the forest, go out into nature, and forest bathing to me is again that using the five senses but doing it in nature. So like out in the forest, like what trees am I seeing? What am I smelling? Is it pine trees or whatever? And feeling, and what are you hearing? Do you hear the birds? Do you hear the squirrels running around in the leaves? That kind of a thing.
It's
The
funny
other,
that
go
you
ahead.
had that on there just real quick because we were like, I saw that on our little notes for discussion on the forest bathing. I'm like, what am I going to wear to the forest? Is it going to be hot? Is it going to be cold? I need to wear a shirt. I mean, I threw myself into a tizzy thinking about forest bathing. I'm like, what forest am I going to go to? Are there going to be ants? Are there going to be... I went down this whole rabbit hole in the forest, and I'm like, oh my God, this sounds awful. But then I'll go to the beach and walk and pick up shots. So that a little bit
It's the
different.
same
It's all
idea.
in how
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
put it
Yeah.
out there. It's like, oh God, all those trees. I'm not a forest girl, so I'm like, ugh. But it's so funny though. You're like the birds and the trees, and I'm like, oh, so it seems like a lot
okay,
to me.
beach bathing.
Exactly.
Like you feel the sand under your feet, you hear the
You hear the
ocean
waves, yeah.
you smell the salt water.
Now I'm good.
Okay, so for you,
Yeah,
replace
yeah.
the word
Keep me out of
forest with beach. And also something that you mentioned, Lisa, and I do it too as well when I'm thinking about all the stuff I got to get done. Then I try to write the list. If you were to look at my office right now for work, I've got sticky notes all over the place, and I do it for that reason of like, I got to remember to do it, and I write a sticky and I put it up. So that all that stuff's in front of me, and
Yeah.
then I can kind
I
of
love
peel
lists.
them off.
I love lists.
Mhm.
Even if I don't,
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
lists. And I'll have days too where I'm doing stuff around the house, and I'll be completing tasks. And I'm like, I should put them on a list that way I can cross them off. It's like, wow, I'm cheating on my lists. but yeah, it is. It's that focus. Anything that's getting you back outside of the
Yeah.
mind level.
Yeah, stop that monkey mind piece and then
Mhm,
go
mhm.
from there. The other thing related to that for me is important when I do like either the list or I do journaling or anything like that, which I think journaling might be another way to get present, to really just think about what's going on and what am I appreciative of and grateful for, and then blah blah blah. I always handwrite it.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yep.
don't type it.
Mm-mm.
Because for me, the act of handwriting forces my mind to slow down
Mm-hmm.
so that I can write complete sentences. So
Mhm.
for me, and that's also part of the process of getting myself back to the present and stopping the monkey mind, is if I'm having to concentrate on handwriting, I can't write as fast as I worry.
Right. It's true.
So don't type it, because I can type very
Oh, yeah.
fast. So handwriting, it's a whole lot slower because you don't handwrite much anymore. But yeah, so that's a technique. I use that technique, but for me, it's the added piece of actually handwriting that list or those sticky notes and stuff like that.
When I'm doing my journaling too, what I find is that because I'm slowing down and I'm trying to write all pretty and, I've been beautiful writing with my favorite pen, and this year I'm trying to combine some of my artwork that I like to do, or whether I'm putting stickers in the journal and doing things, it slows it down. The stuff that I'm thinking about ahead of time that I want to journal about, most of that stuff I don't need to write about. It's just, it's really not necessary, but I like to put every thought down on the piece of paper. I notice my journaling has gotten more focused, and all the stuff that I thought I wanted to write about, I don't need to write about it. That's all miscellaneous nonsense just to fill a book. Like you said, I could type it really quickly and get all that crap out there, but it's not really serving a purpose either. And I find myself actually, it's more fun to journal this way. I'm having all kinds of fun with it. I got glue and stickers and ribbons and crap all over the place. So it's really making it a project, but it's such a good focus. And that way I catch myself just doing a few sentences about something instead of running off at the mouth for paragraphs about one thing. So that's helpful for me too.
One thing that I was thinking of from a metaphysical standpoint is how we're all interconnected and how some of the thoughts we're having aren't even ours.
Mm-hmm.
So how much are we actually thinking about that is some little vibe we're picking up from the universe that's dumping it into us? Of course, our mind's trying to relate it to us. But if you really, like you're just thinking about paring down your list, I'm thinking, I wonder how many of those things were really yours to even have, and how much was you picking up on somebody else's thoughts. So I do that a lot. When I'm having a thought that maybe doesn't ring true to me, I'm thinking, why am I even thinking about that? Like what is that? What's going on? And I literally ask a question, is this mine? Or is it somebody else's?
I like that, because I think people who are empathic and are aware of energy like we are and like many other people, you are going to pick up that stuff.
Yeah,
and
you're like a little radio receiver.
Yeah, I don't even, as much as you block things out, we're all very aware of what's going on around us. And that energy we're just good receptors for that too. So, so a lot of that stuff is just bleeding over and not ours.
Yeah, that is a very good point, because there was a client that I had that stopped by for a reading, mediumship reading, and 2 nights before this client came to me, I had a very disturbing dream, and it involved my wife and I, and it was uncharacteristic of what was going on in this dream, and it was disturbing. I won't describe it because it just upset me, and I woke up and I was upset and worried and all that. But then I started thinking about going, it's just weird. It just didn't seem to relate to us at all.
Yeah.
And then when I was reading the client, I asked him about it, and it was something he went through.
Oh, so see, that energy was already projected.
Yeah, so like what you were saying is, how much is coming in from elsewhere? There's probably a lot, and people don't realize necessarily that it is from an external source. That, you got to learn, how do you distinguish that?
Yeah. Well, a lot of things, as I'm listening to us talk about it, I mean, for us being on the journey, right, we ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times just keeping yourself in the question and not coming to a conclusion, or having it's got to be this way or no way, or, instead of it being, you're opening it up instead of coming into, and, focus is good, but on some things you kind of leave more of a wider stance to it, so that you can kind of find where you're going to decipher it down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You kind of got to go wide first before you can bring it in. And I'll just throw this in here, because some of the Who Does This Belong To is really an access consciousness tool that I learned. So I'll give them a shout out in that. But that wasn't something I read somewhere, but like I like to give our references, but it's an access consciousness tool that has really helped the monkey mind when I find myself spinning. I'm like, wait a minute, who does this even belong to? Is it mine? No, it's somebody else's. Whew, there goes 95%. Of what I was just having, like you're saying, thoughts, but then you can feel it in your body. Like when you're empathic like that, you might feel anxious or whatever, even that. Like, is that mine, or was that somebody else's? Why am I even feeling this? So you can kind of go through your senses with even that, not just your thoughts.
Yeah. Technique that I used to start to learn how to tell what's mine and what's not, so that, I wasn't, like, if I am worried, where is that coming from? I would actually go to places where there's a lot of people, like the mall or something, and just sit down and pay attention to what's going on and pay attention to my feelings. And if I started like worrying about something, I'd look around and see, like, are there 2 people near me that are arguing or something like that? And like, if I see 2 people arguing and I feel worried or anxious about something, get up and move.
Yeah.
Does the feeling go away? So.
Wow. So you're already doing Who Does This Belong To, but in a very visceral, physical way.
That's the way I did it. Yeah. And so I've gotten better. Still not perfect. and I never will be. But I am getting better at, like, when, like, that dream, when that came through. Yeah, I woke up, I was upset. But I was also realizing, this doesn't seem like mine. And come to find out it wasn't.
Awesome.
So.
Did you tell your yoga story? Did I miss it? I want to make sure it's...
Oh, yeah, that was before we get to the yoga story. Going back to the handwriting and make actually handwriting versus the typing of it, and that being a way to slow your mind down to be more present. Something that I've thought about for me on my journey to be more healthy and to eat more healthy is to stop. What's the word I'm looking for? Stop preparing food that's quick to make.
Right.
Stop microwaving and all of that.
Yeah.
And learn to enjoy the experience of taking an hour to make a meal.
Yep. It's a
Or to
very
make a
zen
cup of
thing.
coffee. Or to make a cup of tea.
Yeah.
So for me, it's been like, it's that idea of the handwriting. It's forcing me to slow my mind down. So when it comes to cooking or whatever, I'm not taking something out of the freezer, pop it into the microwave. So there's no thought. I can continue my monkey mind stuff. Whereas if I'm cooking, I have to pay attention to a recipe and, is it hot? Is it ready to, am I ready to add the next ingredient or whatever? So yeah, for me, part of this learning to be present is starting to get back to the basics and start doing things more manually. Don't look necessarily for the fastest way to get anything done.
Very mindful of doing this and this and this.
Thank you for listening to part 1 of the episode on what it means to be present. If you like this recording, find it interesting, or have any comments, please make your comments and put them down below. We'd like to hear from you, and also of any other topics that you think of that might be good for us to talk about, or that you would like to hear about or hear our opinions. Again, just drop them into the comments below. Thank you so much.